guys, Lemmy here, and welcome to my first episode of DIY Patch Notes. This is going to be a show where we make DIY projects. Stuff that you can kind of like put around your house and have and use, or put in your room. Stuff to decorate with. So it's artsy, but it's not just making pictures, it's making items that you can do stuff with. Which is really cool because I like making stuff and you guys probably like making stuff too. So today in our first episode, we are going to make a pop-out poster. Now this was inspired by my brother because he is a high school teacher and he wanted me to do a Yoshi themed poster for his classroom. Whoa! So here we have it. I already completed the project, but I want to go back and teach you guys how to make it. This is made out of foam board, so you can see it's actually pretty thick. Like if I hold it between my fingers, it's thicker than an average piece of paper, which makes it pop out from the wall more, which is more exciting and fun to look at. And if you cut it out, what's really cool is that you have these gaps here. So if you're a teacher and you change up the color of your wall, you put a different color paper, this picture will look different on every color paper that you put up. And it'll be interesting and new and refreshing and kind of neat. So my brother better like this because I want it back. I don't really want to give it to him, but I promised it to him, so that's kind of not good for me. I want it back. He better like it. He better love it. So I'm going to teach you guys how to make your very own poster. And we're going to have so much fun. First, you're going to need foam board, which you can use anything really if you want to make a poster. But to make a pop-out kind of poster that we want that's strong and this thick, you're going to want to get foam board. So the brand that I've gotten was Elmer's because I figured, hey, I like their glue. I like their glue, so why not their foam board? Plus you get 3 boards in one pack. And I wanted to do another project for myself and not just for my brother. So I thought that this would probably be a better idea. Foam board is very light and has like a smooth papery surface on top of the foam. So I really like it, but it will be difficult to cut. So that is why you're going to need an X-acto knife. And you're going to want it to be sharp, no dull ones, or else it's going to be even more horrible than before, what you might have thought. Cutting is terrible. Now, I just want to mention, because you might want to know exactly which one I have, it's 16 by 20 inches. So you're going to need the foam board, you're going to need the X-acto knife to cut it. I tried using scissors to see how mainstream I could get the items to use for these projects, but scissors do not work very well at all because they wrinkle the edges and it looks really terrible. So to get a nice cut, you're going to want the X-acto knife. You're going to need a pencil with an eraser to make your sketch of what you want your poster to be. You're going to then need paintbrushes. I had 2 sizes. I mostly did it with the tiny one, but I use this large one as well for certain areas like the clouds. So you're going to want paintbrushes and paints. And I use the most basic paints. I have these acrylic paints that I got that are craft paint, and I was going to use them for something, and I never did. I got yellow, red, blue, and then black and white, because with these 3 colors, you can make anything you want. I added the black because I wanted the lines to be black like in the video game, and I added white because I wanted to use the acrylics heavily and I didn't want to use the white of the foam board. So I wanted to cover the entire foam board. So with these 5 colors, I made the poster. And then I used a Sharpie for lines because it's big and it covers a certain surface area. So I used a Sharpie. And once it's all done, I spray fixative on it because my brother's a teacher and the kids will probably slobber on it. I don't care if they're in high school, they'll probably slobber all over it if they don't steal it first. So I'm using final fixative. So it's not the workable fixative, it's what you use when you're finished with your picture. And it says it has a gloss to it. I didn't really notice any bright gloss to it, but I just wanted to seal it to make sure in case some kid like licked it. I don't know why you would lick it, but if you licked it, I wanted to make sure that the paint wouldn't come off. So that's my story. Those are the supplies you're going to need. So we're going to get started. First we're going to sketch out what we're drawing on the foam board. Now what's important about this step is that if you have a lot of characters, have a thumbnail like I have on my left, you can see, because there's actually 6 Yoshis in this picture. I wanted to make sure I had a thumbnail. And also when you're drawing, draw very lightly, because if you press too hard you'll poke a hole in the foam board. So there'll be holes, you might rip the paper on top of the foam. You want to keep the quality of the foam board. And if you sketch lightly, you can erase and then your lines won't show. So if you're coloring with some other medium and you're not coloring with the acrylics, you really want to sketch lightly. So you'll see here that this is my finished sketch. I tried to use as much foam board as I could so I didn't waste any. So we're moving onward to step 2, and to be honest, this is the worst step in the entire poster making process. But the good news is that once you're finally done with this horrible, unhappy task, everything else is fun. So this is just the worst, but I'm going to explain the technique that I used here. First, I have a little kind of quick clip, and now we're moving on to the slow one, where this is real time of me struggling to cut foam board. So I try to make one pass. This is actually my second pass with the X-acto knife. The first pass never fully cuts through, and I guess unless you're an Amazon or like some sort of barbarian and you can just like rip through the foam board, the first pass with the X-acto knife does not work. So it usually takes me 2, and both times I'm pressing really hard. The first pass will go through the first layer of paper and the foam, and the second pass will hopefully go through most of the paper on the other side because it's double-sided. Then you see me right here. I have to pick it up and then I begin sawing. Yeah, that's my technique. And I'm sticking to it because it's the only way I can cut this stuff. It is really difficult to cut. If you notice, I don't try to pull the piece away after I make the 2 passes. I don't pull it at all, because what happens is if you pull it, you'll rip it and damage the foam board. So you want to make sure that it will just fall off on its own, or else if you pull, you're going to get something damaged and your picture is not going to look as nice. So this is how I did the entire poster with all the little details. If you do a simpler character, it will not be nearly as difficult. There was one point where I did 2 passes and I could actually cut through, and that was because it was a really simple shape. But you see all the sawing I'm doing is because there's so many curves and I don't want to mess up, and I want to have my edges very clean, and I don't want to cut where I'm not supposed to. At one point I actually do cut where I'm not supposed to, so you'll see that I have to amputate the green Yoshi's leg. So he'll just lose his leg later on. But, you know, all artists make mistakes. It's about how you fix the mistake that matters. You just have to pretend like you didn't make a mistake. So you can see I just wiggled it a little bit and I noticed it wasn't coming off. So I go back to sawing and hacking. All right, so now that that piece has been removed, what I do to make it clean is I flip over the entire poster board, and you can see that it's a little bit rough, and I take the X-acto knife and I cut away the pieces that are sticking out. and I cut like a little bit into the poster just so that the edges are very, 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 very clear. I don't want anything sticking out from the edges because I feel like that would really detract from it. So I just do a nice little shaving on the side that you can see here. This whole process took me actually 3 days because my hand would hurt. So if your hand starts hurting, just take a break. There's no shame in taking a break, you guys. 3 days of cutting. It was miserable. But if you do something simpler, it will not be nearly as bad, and I promise you that. Congratulations, we're now on step 3, which is so much more fun than step 2, I can't even tell you. I just wanted to include this clip, because you're going to see that my palette is going to be to the right of this picture. That's not a piece of paper, that's actually a plasticky sort of piece of paper that I use as my palette, and it's disposable, so I throw it away. So if you're thinking of using a normal piece of paper, that's not a great idea. You want to use something plasticky. So a little bit about this, I used super duper cheap acrylics and very basic colors. So the red is at best student grade quality. And a major problem of student versus professional grade colors, like paints especially, is that they're not as vibrant or pigmented as the professional ones are. So I had to apply a lot of red paint, and you'll still see that the Yoshi's nose is all like, and it looks not so great. But I had to apply a lot of red, and I tried to put a little bit of white for the highlight, which I knew was going to turn it pink, but I had to add a lot of other colors to kind of compensate for that, so that the pink Yoshi and the red Yoshi look different enough. I don't know why there's a pink Yoshi. I mean, you think that the pink one would be orange so that they would be rainbow colored. And I put a lot of thought into this as I was painting it. Because I'm like, this pink Yoshi shouldn't be here. It should be an orange Yoshi. This makes no sense. Anyway, aside from that, I used the big brush for the background. And all the details, I used the small brush. And the big brush was pretty useless. The whole picture is basically done with the small brush, and even that small brush wasn't small enough for all the details that I wanted. But I had to make do because I didn't want to use my watercolor brushes for this. I'm kind of weird like that. I didn't want to mix them. So I put down, how I kind of thought this through was I put down a base coat of colors, and then I went ahead and added shadows and highlights afterwards with the tiny brush. Alright, so now we're on to step 4. Step 4 is totally optional, but I decided to go with it anyway. Step 4 is me using a Sharpie. I have 2 different kinds. One's the felt tip that's normal, like a normal Sharpie, and then there's an ultra fine one that sort of looks more like an inking pen. And you'll see that on the right I have a paper towel, and that's because the felt tip of the normal Sharpie would get clogged because I'm going over the acrylics now. So I guess some of the acrylics would rub off and go into the felt tip and clog the ink that would come out. So you'll see me rubbing the Sharpie against that paper towel on the right to clean the nib so that I can continue inking with the pen. Now, the very, very fine one didn't have an issue going over the acrylics, and I didn't need to clean it. So I'm not sure why that is, but they have different kinds of tips that I noticed. It's also hard to work when there's cat on your picture. He did damage the picture in 2 different places. He bent the green Yoshi's arm, and he scratched a part of the yellow Yoshi. So I did color those areas. I covered them with paint, but you can still see the damage underneath the paint. So that's why I say you have to sketch lightly. If you poke a hole, paint's not going to fix it. You'll still see it. Also, I decided to go with the heavy line art because I wanted it to be very much like Yoshi's Story, Yoshi's Island, which those games have very heavy lines. So I originally I wanted it to be lineless, but then I was like, well, I probably should have these very intense lines and stay true to the game. So this step is optional, but definitely use something like a Sharpie, because if you're going over acrylics, you're probably gonna want to throw away your pen afterwards. So after I'm done with the Sharpie, I move on and I take that black paint that I talked about earlier, and I haven't actually used it for anything in this whole picture yet. And what I do with the black paint is that I go over the sides of the foam board with it. Because the sides are so thick that you can see them, I want to color them black. So then it really looks like it's popping out, and it looks like part of the line work almost because it's black. And I think it makes it look like a lot nicer and a lot more polished if you color the sides. Now if you decide to go lineless, make sure you color the sides the color of whatever is next to it, and I think that would look pretty amazing as well. But since I have the heavy lines, I figured I'm just going to use black. And that's my final step for the actual art aspect of making this poster. Now, there is one more optional step. As you see here, I'm just showing you the poster, and it's like really awkward for me, so I'm kind of talking to myself through the whole thing. I feel like Vanna White, and also kind of ridiculous. But the final step is that I used the final fixative to seal the work. I'm just showing you what it looks like, and I'm like, derp derp. But the final fixative, I'll show you right here, is that you shake it, and you want to do a test spray to clean like the nozzle or whatever. You want to go one way horizontally, and then you want to go vertically, and you want to make sure that you cover it in a light mist. You don't want to be too close. I would show you the process of spraying it, but I can't go outside because I'm hooked into the computer and I can't reach. Simple enough. This is the picture of the final piece, and I don't have any more because I actually gave it to my brother. He did really like it, and it's in his classroom, so we'll see how long it stays there before it goes missing. Anyway, if you guys decide to do something like this and make a pop-out poster, please, please, please send it to me so I can look at it, because I will be so jazzed if you guys made one yourself. So next project I have is actually one for my house, and I'm going to use the rest of the foam board and do something similar. So we'll talk about that when we meet next. And I hope you guys like the project and the new videos, and I'll talk to you really soon. Okay, bye guys!